Hi everyone, welcome to GGN. Today is Monday, March 24th, 2014. I'm Darko, and I got a lot of news for you today, a bunch of pretty decent articles, so I guess it's a good news cycle. Alright, I'm going to get going, start with some weather and some more interesting things. Spring blizzard targets eastern New England, so even though it's technically spring, it's not wanting, winter's not wanting to let go from March 23rd. The potential for a spring snowstorm to unfold along the East Coast continues to be monitored for this coming Tuesday and Wednesday, with an all-out blizzard possible for eastern New England and Nova Scotia. It has the potential to spread a swath of snow from the Carolinas to Maine and Atlantic Canada, along with possible travel delays and disruptions to daily activities. Lastly, a storm moving from the Gulf of Alaska will travel south to east into British Columbia, Canada, Northern Rockies over the weekend that's just passed. During early next week, the storm will turn eastward over the central states, where it will bring spotty snow and a wintry mix in rain. Okay, moving on. Anti-science. I covered this last week. I think it was Friday. Those who wish to debate climate threatened with death or jail. And basically, the gist of it was that groups or bodies, organizations that put out anything that has to say or counter the narrative of climate change or global warming caused by humans could be prosecuted. It's basically what they're saying, but they tend to take this a little too far. We're saying that if you disagree with it publicly, that you're going to be locked up or something like that. And lastly, for this subject, before I move on, is he goes through different people. Lovelock, I think he was proven wrong, but an environmentalist saying we need a more authoritative world. I think he went on to quote Chomsky too, and saying that I would accept fascism to combat global warming. But this is coming from a philosophy professor at Rochester Institute that wants to send people who disagree with them to jail. Obama's top science advisor warned in 1971, John Holdren, that a new ice age was imminent, and it was a threat which could destroy agriculture, cause a sudden slump in the Antarctic ice cap, leading to the biggest tidal wave in world history. So these individuals and certain policymakers, people like him, they understand that there may be climate change, but it's not global warming, that it's actually cooling. They could do things to prepare. They could do things, so the food will be there, but they're not going to, right? They could use authoritative powers to get ready for a coming ice age. I personally wouldn't want that, but they're going to do what they got to do to protect themselves and whatever they're going to do to take care of their families, shelters and food and all that. Yeah, as far as the recent weather's effect on agriculture, it's probably going to have a big effect on prices, depending on when they could actually start planting this year, for next year, for 2015. More than 100 people are missing after a giant mudslide in Washington. They just recently got hit up there in Northern California with an earthquake. More than 100 missing persons have been filed with various agencies in Washington state in the aftermath of a mudslide in which 8 people have basically died. And the biggest news right now as far as the Malaysia flight is that they're saying all lives are lost. So it's basically what I thought it was going to be, no answers, right? They said that it crashed in the South Indian Ocean, or basically the data that it shows that the flight just ended there, so in the Indian Ocean. All right, moving on here. We have U.S. sending more forces and aircraft to seek Ugandan warlord Kony, who many people theorize is already dead or something. But he's going to send 150 special forces troops along with aircraft to Uganda, and this comes as no surprise after what happened with Ukraine and all that. They may just start heading back and trying again in Africa, and they're always trying, but just ramp it up along with Syria too. U.S. foreign policy in Africa is oil and commandos. This is after what? They raided a renegade Libyan tanker on March 16th in the Mediterranean Sea. It was a success by all accounts. They used Navy SEALs. fragile interim government of Libya was delighted to get its oil back after rebels tried selling it to the highest bidder, which I believe is North Korea. They said that the stealthy mission provided a noticeable example of what American foreign policy in Africa is still about, or is all about these days: special forces and oil. Definitely special forces, that's what I try to emphasize here. My GGN reports, Guinea Ebola outbreak thought to have spread to Liberia. They're battling Monday to contain West Africa's first outbreak of the Ebola virus. At least 59 people are known to be dead from it. This was back in 2004. Russian scientist dies of Ebola after a lab accident. A Russian scientist was doing research on the virus. He died accidentally after injecting himself accidentally with a deadly virus. So, oops, yep. Doing research on guinea pigs. This is from, 2009. So 5 years later, Ebola accident led to vaccine's first human trial. It was a nightmare. A scientist accidentally pricked her finger with a needle used to inject the deadly Ebola virus into lab mice. I believe this was Germany. Then shift forward to 2013, last year, August. Scientists are closer to a cure for Ebola virus, new study says. Better place to start a virus, if you know the vaccines are out, than Africa, right? So then Bill Gates and the Vance can go in there and say, hey, we need to vaccinate these people. And then that would be the first pre-trial to, say something in United States or Europe. Youth vaccine crackdown advances in Colorado. It says here that Colorado parents seeking to exempt their children from getting experimented on for personal reasons would face required education under proposal. So it sparks strong feelings among lawmakers about parental control. The House leader said that while he immunized his children, his younger brother doesn't believe in vaccinations. And basically what the bill does is a sponsor is basically saying that my brother is an idiot, my brother is a moron. And it goes on and says that's exactly what this bill does. You can spin it any way you want. Parents of Colorado that choose not to get immunized for their kids, you're stupid to make the decision on your own. So it says here religious and medical exemptions would not be affected. So it kind of sucks, man, if you don't use that and you just, conscientious objector, it doesn't really matter as much. This is not mandatory vaccinations. This is not a change to personal belief exemption. They're trying to educate. Canadian, what it does is it gets parents, second guessing themselves. Canadian parents outraged after school officials vaccinate their children without consent. I mean, seriously, how could you be surprised at this particular point? The grader was pulled out of class one day and coerced into getting the combination DTaP vaccine without parental consent, forms, or even parental notification. Then this is kind of horrible. A couple stories here, so just be ready in case you are eating or something. Aborted babies incinerated to heat UK hospitals. This is from the London Telegraph. 10 NHS trusts have admitted burning fetal remains alongside with other rubbish. While two others used the bodies, they said 15,000 or something, and waste-to-energy plants which generate power for heat. Then in Mexico, the Knights Templar drug cartel is making recruits eat children's hearts and initiation rite. It says here detectives were told of the practice by detained members of the gang. The statements are from some people who present this guy, represent him. But they said here they believe the hearts were mainly taken from local children who were kidnapped, had their organs harvested for trafficking purposes. The purpose of it, get out of there, is loyalty, so prove their loyalty. More crazy stories. Vatican cocaine-filled condoms seized by German customs officers. The package was sent to the Vatican from a South American country that contained 14 condoms filled with 33,000 pounds worth of liquid cocaine. So, I think that's pounds. But either way, that's going to be one big party there in the Vatican room. So, police shoot man dead for camping on government land. You've probably seen this, but says critics of the police department in New Mexico are raising serious questions about the fatal shooting of a homeless camper in the foothills, one even calling it murder, while the department says the shooting was justified. That's right. They said the officer-involved shooting was justified. And I saw this video last night. Pretty crazy if it's actually real, because the guy seemed to be vocally saying that he was coming down. He was not a threat. Something about a knife in the hand. But it says here that they actually, in the department's first, they released the entire video of the incident. Maybe they thought that was going to exonerate them, and they go out to shed, yeah, he was all justified. But the video doesn't really show that. But unless they're not seeing something or hearing something, victim of violent home invasion, persecuted for fighting back. So this is pretty crazy. Thugs smashed into his home at 2:30 a.m. wearing ski mask. They robbed him at gunpoint, stealing money and firearms. And when they left, he couldn't find his daughter, so he pursued them, thinking that they were kidnapped. She was hiding in the house somewhere. But basically, their cars collided, and one of the robbers or thugs was seriously injured. So he's being charged with murder. So pretty crazy story. None of the suspects came to the trial to testify. However, the judge allowed the jury to hear allegations by a cop that said that the suspect, Beamer or whatever, said that he killed the perpetrator on purpose. An elderly man was tasered 6 times during a case of mistaken identity. And I hope that you don't get that you're not a victim of mistaken identity as SWAT teams come to your house or something like that, because it sucks. They don't really care. I mean, just local taxpayers, civilians, citizens are going to pay for it. The 76-year-old man felt pain so severe he thought he was going to die. Apparently they were going or were dispatched to this hair salon where his brother was, but while this old guy, he's like 76-year-old, one of the brothers was going out to the parking lot, the police set their sights on him. They became aggressive and shouted at him. They threw him to the ground on his chest. When he asked why they were hurting him, the police replied, "You know." It says that the bullies proceeded with the attack, firing tasers repeatedly into the individual. Egyptian court sentences 528 Morsi supporters to death. So that's pretty much says what it is. So they're convicted of charges including murdering a policeman and attacks on people and property. They're among some 1,200 Muslim Brotherhood supporters on trial. Turkey protests, 2 more deaths, feeding growing discontent. This is from March 13th, a little bit older, but a police officer had a heart attack and a young man allegedly shot in the head during clashes following a funeral of a teenage boy. Gives you the background of this stuff. Turkey, Twitter allows character assassination, so they basically were what? They were trying to block Twitter accounts. So they said that the government accused Twitter of allowing systematic character assassinations. And it says here, this is after Twitter users easily evaded a government attempt to block the Access network. And then you go down to the Erdogan's statements. He says, "I don't care what the international community says at all. Everyone will see the power of the Turkish Republic." So there you go. Google refuses Turkey's request to yank YouTube videos. The move is the latest sign of resistance to a crackdown against the social media led by the Prime Minister. Oh, Google and YouTube really cares about free speech. Well, not really. Not really. If it suits certain entities, groups, interests, then they will allow it to be, quote, free speech, and they'll let it roll as long as people start uprising and stuff. Not saying that the Turkish people don't have reason to, but they're always going to co-opt that stuff, man. Like we were saying here, this is how I had a couple channels deleted recently. YouTube enrolls super flaggers to watch for offending videos. This is what I was basically a victim of this. In an invite-only program, Google's video sharing site gives roughly 200 people, government agencies, and organizations the power to flag up to 20 videos at a time. YouTube has a team of staffers review videos 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but inappropriate content still slips onto the site, so it appears Google is relying on an army of super flaggers to help pinpoint videos that violate its community guidelines. That involves a British police unit apparently looking for extremist propaganda and terrorism-related videos that are not permitted on YouTube. So they go in there and said that 90% had to do with restricted to only adults, a slew of violating actions, sex and nudity, but that's what they're going for, extremist propaganda. They'll give you this BS disclaimer: we have a zero tolerance policy on YouTube towards content that incites violence. Things are popping off in some places. Venezuela has been pretty hot the last month or two. 101 injured and almost 30 arrested in Madrid, Spain, as anti-austerity march turns violent. That's what they want. They want to turn violent. Probably cops, right? Do it all the time. Almost 90% of Venetians vote for independence from Italy and will withhold taxes to Rome. So, as Venice votes for secession, they're asking, is Sardinia next? I want to be part of Switzerland. And 60% of Catalonians want independence near Spain, and in Scotland, a new poll shows a shift towards yes.